Welcome to the Bucket Plan on Demand, a podcast for financial advisors based on the best-selling book and process that simplifies financial planning. Hear from skilled industry professionals and special guests each episode that will help perfect your approach with clients and your results.
Well, welcome everybody. And Jomar, it's awesome to have you here. We've also got Ryan as our Director of Investment Operations. And the topic that we're going to be talking about is being smarter in the accumulation phase via education and proven processes. I know this is something that I get asked a lot of questions about when we're teaching the bucket plan of how do we adapt this to younger clients. I know most of us are focused on working with pre-retirees and retirees. So sometimes when maybe a child or a grandchild even is referred to you, or you have clients that are in their 20s, 30s, or 40s come into your office, sometimes it's a kind of a deviation from your normal routine. So I'm excited to have our two guests here. Jomar, I want to start with you. So your company is Third Decade and you're the CEO of it. So tell us a little bit about the Third Decade and the work that you guys do.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me on today. So, Third Decade, we're a nonprofit organization that focuses on providing financial education and mentoring to young adults in that age range where they're starting to get money, starting to accumulate, and just really starting to jump off their careers. So, 18 through 35, we have certain requirements. They're usually moderate income individuals just starting their journey. But the key to our organization is that mentoring aspect. So we rely upon the graciousness of volunteer financial advisors, folks with financial backgrounds to volunteer with us to create our program where we have a 2-year program with our participants where they get financial guidance over 3 meetings to pair with the education that we get them to really help them reach their financial success.
I was excited for the name Third Decade because I have 1 year left in my third decade, but I guess I'm a little too old if I'm past the 35 age cutoff.
Well, you're never too old to learn. That's one good thing though. So, but we're never too old or too young to get started, we say.
Nice. So Jomar, how'd you get into that area? How'd you start that company up? And tell us a little bit more of the why behind it.
Well, fortunately for me, I did not have to start it up. We have a wonderful founder, Bob Swift, who down in Tucson had the foresight back in the early 2010s to really think about how, as a financial advisor, we can start to give back and create the foundation to give back as an organization. And he was seeing a lot of kids, as you mentioned, a lot of grandkids coming in, and Gen Z and millennials just weren't getting solid financial education nor having access to the advice they needed. So we were created out of a frustration that there wasn't the opportunity for these young people to be able to have solid conversations and to get the education that they need, which they're not getting from home, from school, definitely not from social media.
Yeah, definitely. Well, sometimes they're getting a lot of advice from social media, but what we typically see, at least on the tax side, is it's generally wrong advice.
Oh,
So nice, nice. Well, Ryan, I know you're also joining us. You joined the C2P team in January. Really excited to have you on board with kind of all of your background and knowledge in investment operations and working with other RIAs. But I know as we're here today, you're part of this savings group. So I guess just share from your perspective, like what you've seen at C2P. You just came through the bucket plan. Any kind of observations or aha moments as you think about like how the role of financial education plays into your own system or your own life, I should say, and how that parlays into what we were teaching over the last couple of days last week as you attended the bucket plan?
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I think I keep learning is that the financial services industry keeps evolving. So I think what I really appreciated about the bucket plan when we went through some of the education there was when we started to compare what the traditional methods for saving, such as like the 60-40 plans and everything like that, compared to the bucket plan. And we dug into it to see what the difference would have been in savings, such as events like 2007 or 8 or different financial crisis and difficult times, the financial services industry. And just, I think as we see the financial service industry evolve, we're starting to see cracks in some of the old systems. And I really like the bucket plan because we're able to see that more from a mathematical point of view, but also just a holistic point of view too.
Nice, nice. So, Jomar, we've got a kind of room full of advisors here, at least a Zoom room. So, what are some of the ways advisors like us can step into the role as educator with these younger clients who might want to start implementing financial strategies? And yeah, tell us about your experience at connecting advisors and how advisors should be thinking that might be different than the way they serve their traditional retirement planning clients?
No, absolutely. So we know that there's a lot of organizations that are starting to bubble up that provide the education aspect. So we lean in strongly to the idea that education is key to this aspect. But education alone, we found out, is just not going to get folks where they need to be, because you can learn something, but if you don't necessarily have the guidance, the accountability partnership, and just the behavior change to move forward with a different direction, you're not necessarily going to be successful with just that education as a background. So that's why we feel it's vitally important for advisors to really start thinking about how they can address these younger populations, this younger generation. We know that the statistics are sobering as far as 50% of Gen Z are living paycheck to paycheck. 43% of millennials report being financially illiterate. And this one always shocks me. Millennials are the first generation to make less than their parents at the same age, 20% less than their parents at the same age. So we know that they may be acquiring some of the information, but they don't necessarily have that guidance. That's why we feel it's vitally important to really have advisors step into that gap. And one of the things that's recently excited me is that how the CFP board, amongst other organizations, has just leaned in with guidance as far as professionals need to be giving back and doing some of that pro bono advising. So that's one really specific aspect that we lean into as third decade, because we rely upon pro bono advisors to really help us get to that next level. We know that folks need that guidance in their 20s and 30s, and the more guidance that they have from organizations like Third Decade, who are relying on volunteers to do this work for us, is going to be awesome. And one thing we have done is we have a thorough program. So we don't just necessarily throw advisors to the wolves when it comes to just meeting with participants. We have a thorough training program. We have guidance, and we want to make sure that we're accountable for the success of our advisors when it comes to how they can have these great conversations. And one of the aspects which we found interesting is, obviously there's a big difference between the conversations that you're going to have during your day job with the wealth advising and the conversations that you're going to have with folks from different generations. They're coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds. They're coming from different diverse backgrounds, and the conversations are just different. And a lot of it is, how do we approach these conversations in a non-judgmental manner? We all have made mistakes. A lot of these people are recovering from their mistakes or are still making mistakes and haven't had a chance to have that behavioral change yet. So I think it's important upon us that we lean in, are able to have some conversations with them, non-judgmental, and be able to ensure that they're getting the guidance they need from us in a manner that's best for them, as well as benefiting us and having a long-term, potentially developing a long-term relationship with them as well.
Gotcha. How are you guys connecting the dots there? Like you have this brand and you're attracting people that are seeking out help, and then you're connecting them to an advisor that is deciding to partner up and partake in the curriculum locally. Is that generally what it looks like? And if an advisor wants to learn more and participate in what you're doing, is there like a certain number or commitment, or what could the advisor expect from it in terms of what that time commitment on their end would look like?
Absolutely. We have a full-fledged program. So we have our participants who come into our third decade cohorts. We call them once per quarter, and they're going to get 10 hours of thorough education around everything we feel that's important. Specifically, as we talk about that accumulation stage, compound interest, how to start saving now, how to get into the market, how to think about your future self, and just really how to change your behavior and start to have a strategic plan for your life. So that's the first aspect. Secondly, we have a solid pool of financial advisors, which were, and just financial professionals, I would say, from around the country. Our work is 100% virtual, so we're able to engage folks from Alaska down to the Key West as far as getting into our program. And once you're a part of our program as a mentor advisor, we wrap our arms around you. So if you're not in the wilderness yourself, you're basically in the third decade family. So we provide you with the training that you need to be successful. We provide you with ongoing support from our volunteer and mentor team. And they are the ones who are going to do that match for you. So our participants come over, they're going to do a match as far as getting our participants to someone who's a right fit for them. And we've set up a whole program where there's going to be 3 specific meetings over a 2-year period. The first meeting is where they're going to establish a financial plan with them, where we use specific financial planning software, just like you all use on your daily basis as well. And then we come back and do check-ins at the 1-year and 2-year period, just to make sure things are well. We help them set goals, but we really try to prescribe that. So if folks want to get involved with us on the mentoring side, they just need to come have a conversation and apply a third decade to be a volunteer. And we'll set up all the necessary tools and things that'll get them to the next level. And when we talk about time commitment, we try to make this as low time commitment as possible, because we know folks have jobs, but we want to really get folks in trained. Our training is about 3 to 5 hours, depending on where you're at. We talk about having these conversations. We talk about our technology. And then after that, it's pretty much the first meeting is going to be about 3 hours, including prep. Come back a year later for another meeting that's about an hour and a half, including prep. Come back a year later for another hour and a half meeting. And that's your commitment to the participant over that time.
Gotcha. You mentioned financial planning software. Is there a specific one you use, or did you create one based on kind of the needs of what you've seen with these individuals that you're serving?
And we would love to be able to create the software, but we haven't had the financial resources yet. It's on our, I don't know if I want to call it a bucket list, but it's on our list of things that we want to accomplish. But we actually just switched. We were using eMoney for the absolute longest, but there's a pretty new startup called Elements that we've been using. I don't know if you've heard of that. And we really like that software, and it's been great for us. And it's the simplicity of having a one-page plan has been great for our participants.
Gotcha. So if an advisor wants to participate, they would need to go sign up for that software. You would help train them on that, or is that software something you provide to the advisor along with the training?
They just sign up with Third Decade. Once you sign up with us, we get you the training, we get you the software, we get you the links. Everything is held within our ecosystem. So, like I said, we treat you as you're part of the Third Decade family once you sign up. So you're gonna get a Third Decade email address actually that you can communicate with your participant if they have any questions and things like that. So we really want to make this as easy as possible. Our participants are the key to our program, but our volunteers are the heart of our program. So we want to make this as easy as possible because we know there's a million things you all could be doing with your valuable time, playing with the kids, watching, I think today's opening day, going to opening day, things of that nature. But we want to make it as easy as possible. So everything is on us to present to you and make it user friendly.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What was the name of that software again?
Elements.
Elements. Okay. Gotcha. I would imagine a lot of the advisory firms that you're working with are pretty well established, successful advisory firms that are now looking to give back and continue to pay it forward to the financial services industry and drive education. I mean, what are some of the positive impacts that you've seen from the advisory firms that have partnered with you guys in terms of just developing long-term client relationships or enabling other areas of their business from a growth perspective?
Yeah. I would say to the first part of that, it varies. We have really large financial advisory firms that are signed on to work with Third Decade. And we have one shingle folks who are a part of our work as well, too, who just value giving back and really wanted to find a way to actualize that. So it runs the gamut when it comes to the organizations and firms which we work with. But as I mentioned, we want it to be mutually beneficial, like you said. So there's a lot of benefits to the folks, both the mentors and the firms who are working with us. And the number one thing that we see is recruitment of new talent. Younger folks who are coming into these organizations. I've been able to speak at a couple of universities recently. One of the things that the young people are saying who are potentially moving into financial planning careers are some of them are uneasy with the idea of only serving high wealth individuals for the rest of their life, right? They're like, I want to give back. I know this is my career, but I would like to potentially have some opportunities to be able to serve folks from a different backgrounds, folks who don't know things, and be able to educate them. So I think that that's a big plus to the firms is that they can say that we have opportunities to give back. You come work here, this is going to be a place that supports opportunities on a multi-generational perspective and gives people the opportunity to give back of their time and to work with multiple different folks. It also provides real world training for younger employees as well too. So we don't consider ourselves a training program, right? But if folks coming into your firm are not necessarily able to get the reps immediately, they get reps with Third Decade as far as having difficult conversations, hard conversations, conversations with folks that don't necessarily come from the backgrounds of the folks who they will be talking with traditionally. So this is almost a training for the folks who are in these younger roles and younger positions as well too. And then last but not least, we don't necessarily advertise this point about working with Third Decade, but we do see that it's probably going to create some long-term relationships with the firm. Because I know if you think about you, when you've gotten guidance and gotten advice and had a great experience with a mechanic, with a tax person or whatever, down the line, when you're looking for a mechanic or tax person, who are you going to seek out? The one that you had that great experience with. So if you're a great mentor to our participant, hopefully they're going to start accumulating. They're going to start getting new jobs. They're going to start getting into that position where they have wealth. And hopefully they'll be seeking you out for that financial advice once they're ready to start paying for it.
Gotcha. That's really helpful. And yeah, I could see that as a huge benefit, especially we've got an advisor career track from client service associate to a paraplanner to an advisor, ultimately a lead advisor one day. And I could see this as such a great way, particularly for somebody who is newer on the career track at a firm to gain some great education and exposure. And it's funny, sometimes like we have some of the most successful financial advisors in the country, and they're so good at what they do with the high net worth or the pre-retiree. But then you put somebody who's 28 years old and they need help with like budgeting and cash flow forecasting and like all the things that probably you guys have a lot of great training built around. And some of that stuff is a bit foreign to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the good things about the third decade is we provide a myriad of tools that they can take with them as an advisor to use on a daily basis. One thing, when firms are part of our third decade network, they have access to our curriculum. So that's something that you could also share with amongst folks in your kind of learning community or grandkids and things of that nature as well too. So that's the thing. But we also have a ton of resources that we've really actualized and found over the years that we just tell our mentors, these please access these, take them with you, use them in your daily life if you need to, whether it's different calculators, whether it's budgeting software or whatever. We just want to make sure that we're able to translate what we have and make that as a benefit to the folks who are growing in their careers, or even the folks who are already in their careers who are doing this work and want to have access to additional resources.
Gotcha. And I would imagine if an advisor is partnering with you to help provide the financial education and literacy, they're not necessarily obligated to help that client implement. Like if that client wants to set up a 50 or $100 a month savings plan, like their investment firm doesn't have to or isn't obligated to take on that client if, for example, they don't meet their firm minimums. Do you guys have a place that you guys recommend, or is it just saying, hey, here's three or four places. Here's Robinhood, here's Schwab, here's E-Trade. You can go and set this up on your own. Kind of talk about the back end of the implementation.
Yeah, it's like you said at the end of it. We definitely don't want our mentors and advisors to feel like they have to bring them on as clients in their day job. So it's pretty much leading them to water, and then they get to drink as participants. So we talk about, obviously, we talk about Schwab's, Vanguard's, dimensional funds. We talk about those major things that they can get signed up for. You know, a prime example is 70% of our participants don't have a Roth IRA when they come to us. And part of what we do is we do a matching $250 investment into a Roth IRA for them as a part of their work if they finish our program. But we don't tell them where to put the Roth IRA. And we don't ask our mentors that either. We just let them know that there are places that you can, these are the locations and places where you can set up this Roth. And if you have any questions, let us know. But it's on them to really set up those processes and procedures. Conversation with the mentor is more about high level goals and getting and creating that plan. So we'll get that strategic plan, we'll get those goals, and then they have to really actualize that plan during that 2-year period as well. And they can ask questions, follow up and things if they have a very specific idea where to do it, but there's no late work that needs to be done on behalf of our advisors.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you make it quite simple and not many barriers to entry. I mean, Ryan, I'd love to hear your perspective, obviously. And again, somebody in this age group, as am I, but like, as you think about barriers that might hold you back from reaching out to a financial advisor or hiring and hearing everything Joe Mar's organization has set up, any observations or insights speaking from experience?
Yeah, I find that I don't know if maybe this is a little bit experience, but also just observation. I find a lot of people my age make excuses, just always, oh, hey, I can't do this now. I can't do that now. And I'm not even sure there's necessarily a good reason a lot of times, but people get in the mindset they have all the time in the world and they just push these things aside. Next thing you know, they have no money saved or anything like that. So I think sometimes it's just a matter of actually doing it and not talking about it.
Yeah, 100%. Joe Mar, do you guys have some, I would imagine you have some collateral built around just showing them how like time is on their side when they're younger. And like you mentioned earlier, compounding and what $50 a month in a Roth IRA could do for you if you start at age 18 versus if you start at age 40, for example. Yeah. How much of kind of the material, I guess, is that all part of that kind of turnkey package that you provide to an advisor like us to be able to utilize in the education process?
Yeah, absolutely. We really lean into the fact that compound interest is one of the most important things that this young generation needs to think about as they start their journey. So we have these things called the Magnificent Seven. It's our seven principles we teach at the very beginning of class. There's seven things real easy that you need to just keep in mind as you go through your journey. And our very first, one of our very first ones is time, the importance of time. And then the second one is go long. So we talk about how those two interact, and we say we use a funny example, right? Warren Buffett, the richest guy in the world, right? You as a 21-year-old have something that he wishes he had more than anything in the world: time. He's not going to be here that long. You have nothing but time to really start your journey, and how you get into the markets as soon as possible is going to be the most important aspect. So we talk about things like we have a phrase we use called 60 by 30, where as long as you spend some time in your 20s thinking about your finances, if you can get 60,000 in a fund by the time you're 30 and don't even touch it, you're going to have 1 million by retirement just with market forces on its own. So we teach concepts like that to our participants to really let them understand that this is how they need to be moving forward. But one thing I do want to say too, Dave, and we don't really ask our mentors to be that education part as well. They are more of that guidance part. So when we talk about the education, the participants are going to take our classes. We really set it up so that they have those 10 hours of education. Then they move on to the mentoring so that they're 100% prepared. You can't say you don't know these things because we just spent 10 hours teaching them. Now you go to your mentor and actualize it for your life. So that's our goal. But our mentors do get access to our curriculum, but we don't actually teach it. We just ask them to really, it's that guidance aspect once now the participants have that knowledge.
Oh, that's awesome. I'd be curious. The Magnificent Seven, I'm guessing it's not Nvidia, Apple, Facebook, and the other stocks. So could you give us a quick rundown of what that Magnificent Seven is for you guys?
Absolutely. So Magnificent Seven is start today. So that's where we talk about time, right? We want to get you in the market as soon as possible. Start today. We say that the best time to start is in your 20s. The second best time to start is right now. Then we say go long. We use the phrase, don't buy a stock that you're not willing to keep forever. Think about your long term. Get into the market and hold. We don't want you guys on Robinhood. We don't want you guys going back and forth thinking you're going to be a day trader. We want you guys to get into the market and hold for the long term. Next is diversify. We want you to really start thinking about where are you putting your money? Diversify your funds. Don't put 100% in one thing when you can get into a mutual fund or target date fund and really start to get to the point where you have that solid diversity. Next is be cheap. We want you to look at things that you don't really think about. Nobody thinks about fees when it comes to in their 20s when they're thinking about where to put things or how to do things. So be cheap when it comes to your investment strategy and just where you got to put your money overall. Fifth is be strategic. So we talk about budgeting. We have a strategic plan for your life. We want you to really think about what your goals are, get things down on paper, and really start to take the outside noise out, which is leading into stay focused, which is number six. We are going to have 1 million things going through your head, whether from social media, from friends and family. You really need to tune that out and stay focused on your plan as well too. And that's where we start to see that behavioral change. We want people to really get off that idea of the hedonic treadmill, where you're going to be spinning your way out of sadness and spinning your way towards happiness. Just know your wants versus needs and hang with like budgeted people. And then the last is just in perpetuity. Once you start knowing these things, we want you to use them consistently and to move forward. So we talk a lot about these in our first class, just to get, it's really simple things. We even have some bookmarks that we have it on that we would love to get out to you guys as well too, just so folks understand what our principles are on a consistent basis.
That's awesome. Well, I could think of some of our clients in their 50s and 60s that could use that Magnificent Seven also. So that's really helpful. But as we land the airplane here, number one, if anyone has any questions for any of us or for Jomar, please feel free, of course, type it in the chat or just unmute your line. But how can an advisor who's here and with C2P get started or reach out and learn more? I think this is such an unbelievable opportunity for particularly any advisors along that career path. I mean, this will just make you that much better of an advisor long term by being able to plug into a program like this and give up some of your time and be able to give back and use it as an opportunity for yourself to learn a little bit along the way. But how can anyone learn a little bit more or reach out and get started with what you're doing?
So the first step would be to get to our website at www.3rddecade.org and our volunteer page. That'll give you all the information you need to know about how to start the journey of being a volunteer. Once you submit your volunteer application, my team will get in contact with you. We'll have an orientation. We'll let you know what to expect. We'll talk about if this is a fit for you, and then we'll go from there. Once the journey is started, we're going to really do a lot of hand holding to make sure that you all are successful. We put so much time in our training and support platform for our mentors that we want to make this simple for you. So come, once you sign up, we're going to do a lot of hand holding to get you in the door because we want to keep you in the door as a mentor for the long term as well.
That's awesome. Let's make sure we tune in next week. We've got a session on advanced life insurance. And just a quick kind of FYI, we're doing our next tax management journey training down here in Charleston. It's I think, May 1st and 2nd, I believe. And normally that tax management journey is a day and a half. Well, when we conclude the tax management journey, Stoyan is going to be leading an advanced life insurance training. So if you're looking at picking up some advanced strategies, ideas, and implementation, I know he's going to be inviting some of our top advisors to join and sharing some different strategies there. But next week, him and Caleb are going to be talking about the importance of life insurance. And I know I'm super excited that once Professor Worley and I finish up the tax management journey, I'll be able to attend that live training on life insurance. And so, Stoyan, no pressure there, but we're looking forward to it. All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap for this week. Jomar, it was awesome. Thanks so much for jumping on here with us, and look forward to getting involved with you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bucket Plan on Demand, brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Subscribe today for the latest episodes and insights. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help support and enhance your advisory business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.